that should be fun to see. See all the international players playing against each other. It'll be interesting to see who wins that thing. But I think it'll probably come down to probably Japan and the U.S. But I hear that Dominican Republic has a pretty strong team this year. Yeah.
We got into this conversation pretty heavy last night. That's okay. We can go over the same conversation because it's a whole different voice. Your thoughts on Roki Sasaki? Where are you at with this guy? What role do you think he should be in? And just kind of overall, your thoughts on how he's pitched since he's been a Dodger and where we should move forward here.
Well, I guess the first word that comes to mind is inconsistent. I mean, he has the stuff. He's still a young guy, so he's kind of finding himself, I think, but obviously has great stuff. And he just needs to find that consistency and harness it. This last start was a perfect example of that because he had a terrible first inning and then came out and looked great in the second and third inning. So hopefully he unlocked what he needs to as far as getting in a groove with his mechanics and that kind of thing. And that'll, going forward, just like last year, I mean, it took him a while, but, in the playoffs, he was dynamite. So I'm hoping that, he doesn't have more setbacks, but I think the second and third innings were really encouraging for him.
Being a two-pitch guy, is that a starter? That's kind of – I know he's trying to work on that third pitch, but, I mean, beyond just the results, the aspect of just being two, hopefully three pitches, I mean, is that enough for you to say, hey, this is definitely a starter for the future?
It's really tough unless you have a really dominating pitch. Like I think about Mariano Rivera back in the day, had the cutter that was just so dominant. It's really tough to get hitters out when you only have two pitches as a starter. So I think he really needs to develop at least a strong third pitch to be a starter. And I don't know how far along in his development it is with that this spring. So that could definitely set him back in terms of being a starter. So we'll have to see how that goes.
So let's go through the roster here. And I kind of want to get into the bullpen, because we're going to talk about some of the position battles here. So give me a guarantee. Let's only count the guarantees here, and then we'll count up and we'll see what's left, and we'll kind of go through some of the races from there. Okay, Ben Kasparius.
Ooh, man,
only guaranteed. I mean, if there's any question, let's say no, and then we can discuss all the ones that may be on the bubble.
I would say no.
No to a guarantee. Again, we're not saying no, he won't be on the roster. We're just saying no, it's not a guarantee at this point. Exactly, Edwin Diaz is obvious. Jack Dreyer, what do you think?
I'd say he's pretty much a guarantee.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's two. Paul Gervais, no. Tyler Glasnow, yes. There's three. Brusdar Graterol, no. Edgardo Henriquez.
I would say he's not a guarantee.
Kyle Hurt.
Not a guarantee, no.
Yeah. Will Klein.
He's getting closer, but I would say no still.
Landon Knack, Ronan Kopp, Bobby Miller. Any of those?
No, none of those.
Evan Phillips, no. River Ryan?
Another guy he's looking good, getting closer, but I would say no.
No guarantee, yes. Yeah. Okay, Roki Sasaki, yes. That makes 4. Tanner Scott makes 5. Emmett Sheehan makes 6. Blake Trinan makes 7. Alex Vesia makes 8. What about Justin Robleski?
Robleski, I mean, you want to say yes, but you already got 8 there. So, barring injuries, it's going to be tough we talked about that last time. It's going to be tough to narrow it down.
Yeah. Yeah. So bubble. Okay. Yamamoto makes 9. So that gives you 4 spots for Ben Kasparius, Paul Gervais, Edgardo Henriquez, Kyle Hurt, Will Klein, Landon Knack, Ronan Kopp, Bobby Miller, River Ryan, and Gavin Stone if he's healthy, Justin Robleski. Which 4 make that cut for you?
I think Robleski probably has, the biggest chance to make it. And then I think Will Klein has a really good shot. Let's see, who else did you name there?
Well, you got Robo, you've got River Ryan, you've got Ronan Kopp, Landon Knack, Will Klein, Kyle Hurt, Edgardo Henriquez, and Ben Kasparius. You said Jack Dreyer was a guarantee. So,
Yeah.
of those, you get 4 picks from those guys. Who would they be?
I would say Kasperius. Well, so let's go Robo, Kasperius, Will Klein. I think has a really good shot.
Robo Kasperius. Okay.
Yeah,
Will Klein.
Robo Kasperius, Will Klein, and then I'm trying to think of who else was
River
in that.
Ryan or Kyle Hurt, you think?
I think if they don't make it as a starter, I don't really see that. I think the Dodgers want to get them innings, so I think that especially, well, both of those guys really, I think they want to get them innings. So I don't think they want them in the bullpen where they're gonna not get as much work on the major league level. So I kind of tend to think if they don't make it as a starter, then they're not going to be on the roster.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of comes down to who the starters are going to be.
Yeah.
It works in River. Well, both of their favors. That Blake Snell's not going to be ready, and it looks like Gavin Stone's not going to be ready either. So I could definitely see River Ryan possibly. Well, either one of those guys maybe being one of the starters to start out with. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think if you do that, then I think that probably puts. I think it comes down maybe to Kyle Hurt versus a Will Klein versus a Ben Kasperius. I think you might get 1, maybe 2 out of those 3. But if I had to choose between those 3, which way? Let's say there's only 1 spot, and you have Ben Kasperius, Will Klein, and Kyle Hurt competing for all 3 of those spots. Who would it be?
I kind of lean towards Will Klein right now. I think he's pitching really well, looking really good.
Who would be the second one if you get 2 of them? You think?
Kasperius, I think. I think they probably want to get Kyle Hurt more work in the minor leagues, coming off his injury. So yeah, I would think those 2 guys. And another guy that has looked pretty good is Ryder Ryan. So
yes. Yeah.
I think he's kind of a dark horse for a spot too, and him and his brother could be competing for a spot too. When it comes into it.
What do you know about Antoine Kelly? You know anything about him?
No, I really don't know much about him at all. There's a few guys, and like Jordan Weems they brought in, there's a bunch of guys that they're bringing in. They brought in, kind of for depth, I think. So it was good to see Antonio Knowles pick up a save. He was a little shaky the other night, but it's cool to see him into the game. I think he's a future major leaguer at some point. Yeah,
they call him the spin doctor. He likes to spin the ball. Carson Hobbs is the guy that's pitching today, and I know he's one we've talked quite a bit about. He had just an incredible season last year. He's really, really come on, and hey, this isn't just me speaking. This is Rick Honeycutt and all sorts of different people in the organization talking about just how impressed they are with him. He has not had a good spring training. I am not going to sugarcoat that whatsoever. I'm going to try to get some video up on him. Give me just a second here.
Okay.
And see if I can get the video. Yeah, video's right here. He has not had a good spring training. I do not want to try to sugarcoat that and act like he has to this point in terms of results. And so, as Joe's saying here, really hope that Carson Hobbs can bounce back and have a good outing today. This guy is good. He will be good. It's been tough watching him struggle so far. So, man, I just hope Carson Hobbs has a good outing today. I'm with Joe on that one.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I don't know if it's nerves or is kind of trying to get into a groove or what, but I looked at his stats for last year, and he had pretty dominating stats on the minor league level, and he's moving through the system pretty quickly too.
He absolutely is.
Yeah, hopefully he has a good showing today.
Yeah, no doubt. And beyond that, okay, we talked in depth about the Alex Freeland show, the Alex Freeland Hye-Seong Kim versus Santiago Espinal thing. So we didn't really get into this part of the equation, though. So kind of tell me as a fan, or if you've owned a business before, Mark, so just kind of as a decision maker. So you're trying to, maybe if you're making a differentiation of who's going to be the starting second baseman until Tommy Edman gets back, how do you make this decision with guys in different places and competing against different types of competition? How do you do that? I mean, that, with Hye-Seong Kim at the World Baseball Classic and Alex Freeland and Santiago Espinal in spring training, how do you compare Kim to the other two when they're in different spots? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to make it a little bit challenging, but I guess the Dodgers are just going to have to watch video and see what what Kim does batting against in the international level. I mean, it's actually kind of more of a test for him, really, when you think about it. I think than spring training. They're going to be more stressful at bats, and more intensity and that kind of thing. So it may be kind of a good thing to see what he can do on that stage.
What are you seeing with Dalton Rushing right now?
Oh wow, he's Dalton Rushing. He's looking
Is he surprising
very
you? Like, were you disappointed in him last year, or were you like, oh, he'll be fine as soon as he gets comfortable? First of all, take us through where you started on him coming into spring training and where you're at now.
Well, coming into spring training, I was a little bit concerned. I've always felt like he's going to be a good quality major leaguer at some point, I mean, I saw him play in the minor leagues quite a bit, and the ball just, I mentioned, it kind of comes off his bat a little bit differently than other guys. And he has great plate awareness, as far as commanding the strike zone, all that kind of thing. So I really do feel like he's going to be a good major leaguer at some point. And so I had a feeling it would come, but coming into spring training, I didn't, because he hasn't really gotten many at bats or opportunities. I wasn't really sure where he's going to be at, but he's looked really impressive so far this spring.
I know him and Will Smith have a very good relationship, so this doesn't go to any of that. But do you think it's helped him that Will Smith's not around right now?
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it's helping him somewhat. So getting those extra opportunities always helps for a young player like that. So, and also just maybe there's a little bit less pressure just knowing that Will Klein isn't around.
Yeah, I don't think. Will Smith. I don't think it's because Will Smith makes him nervous or the competition aspect of it makes him less comfortable. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I just think the fact that Will Smith's not here just means that he gets more consistent at bats, and he knows he's going to get those consistent at bats, and that's more baseball-ish, if you will. It doesn't have anything to do with Will Smith himself. It just has to do with that baseball-ish type setting that he's in now, because he knows he gets every day at bats. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for a young player like that, especially, it's really difficult when they're not getting consistent at bats. So, baseball is a game that really you can play mind games with you. And, when you have an at bat and then you don't bat again for a couple of days, all kinds of things go through your head. So, it's tough enough to play when you're playing every day, but when you're only getting a few at bats a week, it makes it super tough. So, yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Okay, so Ha-Seong Kim, first of all, I am on record as of right now. I am a Santiago Espinal. I'm on that bandwagon. Can you talk me off of that? Am I making too much out of what some people think is meaningless spring training at bats because you don't know who you're pitching against? The track record hasn't been good the last couple of years. So either correct me or do whatever you want with my opinion of Espinal. He would be the starting everyday second baseman for me. Ha-Seong Kim would be the utility guy. And then after we get into that, I think one of the downfalls, I think Noah Ortega is absolutely spot on here. One of the downfalls of Ha-Seong Kim not being in spring training is that he's only going to play second base in the World Baseball Classic, which means he's not going to continue to grow in center field, which means it's less likely he'll be the utility guy at the major league level. So, first of all, talk me down from Espinal if you want to, or however you want to go with that, and kind of chew on my opinion of where I'm at with that second base position.
Yeah, when the Dodgers acquired Espinal, I kind of looked up his stats and his splits and that kind of thing, and he has outstanding splits against left-handed pitchers, especially. I believe it was left-handers, right? Or was it right-handers?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, left-handers. So that gives him an advantage. I think his career, he's hitting over 290 career-wise against lefties. So that gave him an advantage to at least make the roster. And he's had he's been a decent major league hitter, especially been actually above average, as I said, against left-handers. So I think him being a veteran, and he has some versatility also, which helps him. I think he has a good shot at it. I think he has a good shot to be there, and maybe they'll want to send Kim down to the minors, and that's a good point about him not being able to play center field. So maybe they'll send him down and give him some more seasoning in the minor leagues.
Yeah. Yeah, Espinal, he's had a good spring. I don't think you can – I mean, how important do you take this spring training at bats? Is that something that you're actually evaluating, or are you just kind of just looking at the overall player? I mean, how seriously do you think spring training at bats need to be taken when you're talking about a competition in some of the margin areas?
I think it's very important, for him to come out and play the way that he has. He's really kind of set himself apart, and really put himself on there near the top of the list for second base, I would say. Alex Freeland is also, he's looked pretty good. He's not really hitting the cover off the ball or anything, but he's getting on base.
I think he's looked comfortable. I think you could say that.
Yeah. Yeah, his average is 200, but he's getting on base consistently. So he's showing that a lot of patience as a hitter, and he showed some power too. So he's definitely had some pluses, but when it comes down to it, they may want to see him get some more minor league seasoning too.
Glasnow not quite as good of an outing yesterday as he had his first time out, but he's looked good. To me, Glasnow has the look of I know it's spring training and everybody's 0-0 and there's a lot of euphoria. It's so exciting. He just kind of has a look to me like this is going to be his year to stay healthy. I just, for some reason, I have that feeling. I don't know why.
Well, I sure hope you're right.
Yeah, no doubt.
Dodgers could use that. Yeah, and he hasn't had I don't know if he has any seasons where he hasn't missed some time, but yeah. I know he went out and gained some weight this offseason to try to help in that regard, and hopefully it does. But yeah, they could definitely use that from him, a full season out of him.
Yeah, no doubt about that, especially with Blake Snell. You never know what's going to happen with Shohei Ohtani, and I mean, how many times you say this? You have Kyle Hurt and Will Klein and River Ryan and Gavin Stone and Landon Knack and hopefully eventually Bobby Miller, Ben Kasparius, maybe even a Jack Dreyer or Justin Robleski. Then you have the next layer like an Adam Sirbanowski, a Jackson Ferris, maybe even a Peter Hubeck as he comes up and he blazes the trail, and Ryder Ryan. You have all these guys on the margins, and you're like, man, they need to trade some of these guys because they're never going to be able to use them. And it just seems like every single year the Dodgers reach down into every bit of their depth to the point to where you're throwing Will Klein and Ehrhard and Enriquez in basically a swing game in the World Series. It always seems to work itself out.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, you think that they're never going to, like you said, they're never going to get a chance in a game, but somehow it just works out that way. Paul Gervais is another guy I was looking at. Yeah, he's a guy that could
Ronan
get some major
Kopp,
league time.
I forgot about Ronan. Yeah,
Ronan Kopp. They're taking a good long look at him. He has great stuff. He just needs to, if he can get his command together, more consistently, he's going to definitely be a factor for this team, I would say.
What prospect has caught your eye the most, and what prospect do you think has raised their stock the most? Let's start with, so there's different layers. There's layers like an Elijah Hainline, who was downline, just got to high A Great Lakes, not threatening the major leagues whatsoever, no matter what he does. So you have those kinds of guys. I think Josue DePaula and Zaire Hope are both in that category. Hey, they can have great springs. They're still not going to make the major league roster.
Right.
So they're kind of auditioning for the future. Then you have guys like Noah Miller. You have guys like Ronan Kopp. We talked about all the pitchers just a minute ago. Maybe even a Jackson Ferris, who are literally auditioning for roles possibly this year. Okay, so let's do this in layers. Let's start with the guys that are already the quad A guys, meaning the Kyle Hurts, the Will Kleins, the guys that we're not exactly sure whether they're going to start with Los Angeles or Oklahoma City. Which one of those guys do you think has raised their stock the most out of all of them? Let's start with that kind of that layer of player.
Well, as far as regulars go, guys that hitters that could possibly make the team, I mean the spots are so tough to get, on the Dodgers, that there's really not much there. I think we talked about Freeland, Alex Freeland. I think he's the one who probably has the biggest chance to make it. Keston Hura obviously got sent down. He was struggling, but he was a guy coming into spring that he thought, well, maybe he has a chance, but doesn't look that way. They've given Siani a lot of playing time, and he really hasn't. I've looked at his stats, and even in the minor leagues, he really hasn't had all that impressive offensive stats. I really don't see him making the team at all. But coming into spring, I thought maybe he had an outside shot. So really, as far as making the team, I think the only one that really has a legit shot out of the young guys is probably Freeland at this point, as far as hitters go. One guy that's, I'll get to that later because we're talking about guys that could possibly make the team right now. But I would say he's the only one that, in my mind, that has a legit shot to make the roster right now.
Zach Ehrhard, is he one that has a chance to make it this year? Would you put him in the quad A guys, or would you put him in the younger guys like a Zaire Hope and a Josue DePaula? James Tibbs the third.
Yeah, those two guys I was going to touch on as guys that are probably down the line. They've both been super impressive this year, and that's really bodes well for the future, I think, because the way they've impressed, I think they put themselves on the radar. So if there's an injury or something, they'll be one of the first guys called up, I would say. And you mentioned Josue DePaula and Zaire Hope. They've also been extremely impressive. All four of those guys have really impressed this spring for sure.
If it's not a Ryan Ward, a Michael Ciani, and Alex Call, somebody like that. If you have to go down, even a Chris Newell, okay? If you have to go down to that next group that's not the quad, that next level, the Zach Ehrhards, the James Tibbs the thirds, the Chris Newells, the Zaire Hopes, the Josue DePaulas, those guys. If you have to go down to that crop to bring up a guy to come to the major leagues, which one of those outfielders that you've seen in spring training so far do you think is the most major league ready right now?
I would probably lean towards Zach Ehrhard, which, I mean, he's...
Why do you say that? I mean, what about what he's done? Of course, I'm going to agree with you because he's my OSU boy, but what makes you say that? I'm curious to get other people's opinions because I know I'm biased, so there you go.
Yeah, just his all-around game, and he's only been in the system, in the Dodgers system for, this is 2 years now, or when did they draft him?
You talking about Ehrhard?
Yeah, Ehrhard.
He came in the Dustin May trade last year.
Okay, but
he's only even James Tibbs third at the same time.
Yeah. He's only 2 years out of college or something, right? I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Last year was he this is 20. So his last year at OSU was 2024. Yes,
2024. Wow.
So last year was his first year in minor league baseball, first full year, and he made it all the way to Double-A Tulsa. And absolutely killed it with Double-A Tulsa.
Yeah, so that's even more impressive than what he's doing right now because he, for him, I just looked up his stats. He's hitting 348 in spring training with a 988 OPS, and it's not just a few at bats. He's had 23 at bats, so he's been very impressive this spring, as has James Tibbs. But I would say it's almost hard to believe that he's only been a minor leaguer for 1 year, but he's probably at the top of the list right now in terms of who they would bring up.
So I'm not being a homer here with Ehrhard.
No, I wouldn't say so. Not the way he's been playing.
Yeah.
Another guy that I was going to mention too is Noah Miller because he's looked really good.
Before you go on though, I think the reason why Zach Ehrhard would probably get the nod over James Tibbs III is because he has more defensive versatility, and I just don't see the defensive positions that James Tibbs III could play for the Dodgers being more advantageous. Zach Ehrhard's a better defender, point blank. Now, you could say, well, Tibbs III can play first base, but Freddie Freeman's going to play first base, and when Freddie Freeman's not playing first base, then Dalton Rushing is going to be playing first base, which is why when people were like, well, Ryan Ward is playing a crappy first base, I don't disagree, but it doesn't matter because he's not going to play first base if he gets brought up because when Freddie's not playing, those at-bats have to go to Dalton Rushing. So the problem I see with James Tibbs III is I just don't see the defensive position. I think if you evaluate the offense, okay, whatever, maybe you could make some cases either way. But I think if either one of them go up, it's going to be to play the outfield. And there's no doubt about it that Zach Ehrhard's the better outfielder.
Right, and he has good speed, too. I think I don't know how fast Tibbs is, but I know Ehrhard has some really good speed. So he's very a great all-around game. So that's why I feel maybe he's more major league ready than Tibbs is at this point.
Yeah, I wonder why they're trying Tibbs at different positions, future utility guy. Well, I can tell you this. Whenever you can hit, they try to find So you put your best 9 offensive players in the lineup, and then you try to find defensive positions for them all to play. So they're trying to create defensive versatility for Ryan Ward, for James Tibbs III, for hit first guys to figure out a way to get their bat in the lineup. That's why they do that.
Yeah, exactly. They Tibbs. With all the young outfielders they have, I'm sure that's why they're trying to do that. Give him some versatility there. But he looks great. He has a good bat. Good approach at the plate.
I think Zach Ehrhard and Noah Miller are the 2 prospects that have raised their stock the most. Not with me, but I just think with the average Dodgers fan, and probably even with the organization. Because to be honest with you, I probably see these guys more than like a Dave Roberts does, that kind of thing. So like for a Dave Roberts or maybe some of the coaches, the major league coaches that are in the dugout right now that don't get to see the minor league games every day, I think Noah Miller and Zach Ehrhard are the 2 guys that have made them go, wow, I didn't really even know who these guys. These guys are good, right? I think, and maybe Elijah Hainline. I think those are probably the 3 guys that have turned the most heads.
Yeah, and I've been wanting to mention Elijah Hainline because I saw him in the minor leagues and talked to him a little bit last year when I was in Rancho Cucamonga, and he just has this confident air about him. He just seems like a guy that is going to be a major leaguer to me. The way he carries himself, he does everything well. He runs well. His footwork at second base, he's always in the right position and everything. He's made some really good plays at second base. He kind of reminds me a little bit of I'm drawing a blank. The second baseman, Chase Utley. Yeah. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Chase Utley, and obviously, for him to get to that level is very unlikely. But just his mannerisms and his confident air and everything, and I feel like he's a guy that could move pretty quickly through the system. Last year he did move quickly through the system, so he's another guy. I think last year was his first year, I believe, out of Oregon. So
Oregon State, yeah.
Yeah, so I really like Elijah Hainline, his all-around game.
Hainline to me is the infield version of Zach Ehrhard. So you kind of go, okay, does he have one carrying tool where you go, okay, like Kendall George, he can run. He has that carrying tool. Like Josué Paula, he impacts the ball. He has that carrying tool. Some guys like Jose Ramos, it was the athletic ability and the arm. So they have this one carrying tool or maybe 2 that stick out. And you go, well, if he becomes a major leaguer, this carrying tool is going to be the reason that carries him to the major leagues. Hainline and Ehrhard really don't have those stick-out carrying tools. They just have complete games. It's like there's nothing they're not good at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. They both strike me as the kind of guys, the gym rat term that they use in basketball.
Yes.
Kind of, they strike me as those kind of guys who are probably constantly working on their game, all aspects of their game. So I think that they probably fit into that category.
Boy, how impressive. And we got into a lot of the talk about the different – Austin's way better at doing the numbers and crunching the statistics of all the different position battles. We like to really get into the prospect talk and maybe some of the future aspect of it. But I'll tell you this, Mark, of all the guys, the prospects – no matter what level, okay, whether it be the quad A guys, whether it be the next round, maybe the Ehrhards, the Josué Paulas or the Elijah Hainlines, the guy that, in my opinion, has impressed the most and made the biggest impact to me, has to have made the biggest impact on whoever it may be that's making decisions, Dave Roberts, Andrew Friedman, Brandon Gomes, has to be this guy, Noah Miller. Noah Miller has been awesome in spring training, and again, he doesn't have the knee brace on. He's past the knee injury. It looks like he's gotten his explosive nature back. And, man, does this guy look confident. Noah Miller, to me, and I've always liked Noah Miller's defense. I've always been suspect about his offense, and I still am, okay? Mm-hmm. I'm still not sold that his offense is going to be great or anything. But Noah Miller is a guy that has even impressed me, like, oh, this guy without the knee brace is even better than I thought he'd be.
I agree with you there, and I've heard his defense described as possibly a future Gold Glove
Yes.
level shortstop.
Yeah.
So he could be the starting shortstop, I think, on a lot of major league teams right now.
Even if he didn't hit.
Yeah, I mean, if he just hits okay, you
Yeah.
know, and I think he could, judging by this spring, I think he could at least handle himself offensively, you know, to contribute and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, he's really probably maybe even more than Ehrhard, but those two guys have really bumped up their stock this spring. If there is an injury, then he'd be one of the first guys they'd look at, I'm sure, Noah Miller.
What's going on with Ehrhard and Enriquez? It's kind of an interesting deal because it's like with all of his outings, you can kind of explain them away and you can kind of go, well, this or that or this or that. But then all of a sudden you still have to say it's been real ugly at times and it's been really up and down. So I know that the guy's 23, so he's still very young, nothing to panic about or anything. But it just doesn't seem like Ehrhard and Enriquez is getting over that hump yet. I think he will eventually, but it just doesn't feel like he's getting over that hump yet, does it?
Yeah, he's he just can't seem to harness his command, you know, and he doesn't. His secondary pitches, you know, are not extremely impressive yet. So I think, you know, he may have a hard time. I think he's going to have a really hard time making this roster. I think he has some work to do still. He's a guy that has a very high ceiling to where you could see him being a closer in the major leagues at some point. But he also has his floor is kind of low too if he can't get it together as far as getting, you know, good command and good command of his secondary pitches. So. Yeah, he has a world of potential for sure.
What do we do with Wardo, man? I know he's starting to hit. He's starting to look a little bit more comfortable. He has not handled the pressure of this spring training very well. I'm going to say that point blank. If he watches this and that upsets him, I'm sorry. Hey, it is what it is. I'm on record. I wish the Dodgers would have let him become a free agent. That's fine. They didn't. He's on the 40-man. He said all the right things, and I believe him because Ryan Ward is a stand-up dude. So if he says it, I believe him. But having said that, I'm going to make this observation. He can disagree with this if he doesn't watch this. But, man, the situation he was in was a lot of pressure. I've got to bust, as you said, Mark. If you're a prospect like Ryan Ward, you don't just open the door. You have to bust down the door if you want to make this Dodgers roster. Yeah. So he came in knowing I've got to just absolutely kill it this spring training. A lot of pressure. I'm going to say it point blank. I don't think he's handled the pressure of what he needed to do in spring training the way that I hoped that he would have in terms of the production of it. I think I'm starting to see him get comfortable to this point. But what in the heck do we do with Wardo, man? We cannot let this guy sit in Oklahoma City for another 3 years.
Yeah, I feel bad for him, you know, because obviously he had just a phenomenal year last year offensively, but he'd probably be the first one to agree with you. You know, he just hasn't performed the way he's wanted to this spring, either offensively or defensively. He's looked shaky defensively as well. So, and just hasn't really hit the ball all that well, you know, like he's capable of, and you know, he's probably feeling the pressure. And realizing that, you know, he has to make the most of every single at bat in order to have any shot at making the major leagues. So I think, you know, eventually I think he's going to end up being with another team, sadly, but that's probably the way it's going to work out. And I hope for his sake that it happens soon, because like you said, he has nothing left to prove on the minor league level. I hope he gets his shot at some point, somewhere, you know, in the near future.
Hypothetically speaking, 1 run in extra innings, this is from Noah Ortega. In the regular season, given what we've seen, who do you trust more to get the last 3 outs, Roki or Ehrhard and Enriquez? I'll give you my answer after you give yours.
I would have to say Roki, yes, based on what he did in postseason last year. Ehrhard Enriquez has just been too inconsistent overall for me.
I would agree with that. Okay, Mookie Betts at shortstop. We've talked many different times. I think he's going to have a very good year this year because I think he understands kind of what the perfect mix is of the workload between, yes, making sure and doing enough work to not, you know, to be at the top peak, but not so much work to where it affects, you know, your body and just kind of the grind of things to where it affects your offense. So I've said this many different times. You can't say it too much. Super excited about what I think Mookie Betts is going to be this year. And then I do this every year, but I'm kind of weird on Max Muncy. I like, there hasn't been a whole lot in spring. I know it's spring training and Muncy takes forever to get going and that kind of deal, but
Right.
he's always weird for me because it just seems like every time that I think, well, maybe he's getting a little bit older or maybe this, he always comes back and proves me wrong. So kind of where you at on Muncy and chew on my thoughts on Mookie Betts.
Well, Mookie, unfortunately for him last year, he had that sickness and lost a lot of weight and everything. So it really impacted him, I think, as far as him getting going and playing a new position, everything like that. So this year coming in fully healthy and all that, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do, and how he can improve his all-around game even more defensively and offensively. So, it's offensively, he's been a star for many years, so we already kind of know what he can do. But defensively, especially, I think he can make even greater strides. So yeah, it's definitely exciting to see what he's going to be able to do this year. Muncy really hasn't. He's only had 7 at bats so far. So he is, as you said, traditionally kind of a slow starter, offensively and defensively. Like, I feel like at the beginning of the season, he typically tends to make some errors at third base, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's terrible defensively," all the fans, and then he picks it up. And like last year, I think the second half especially, he was very strong defensively. So, he's a slow starter, but I'm sure he'll come around and be his old self this year.
So let's put a bow on this. Got to get here in just a second. Who is your fourth outfielder right now? Michael Ciani, Alex Call, Jack Sawinski, or is it a Zach Ehrhard, somebody like that? And then who is your starting second baseman? Who's the super utility guy right now? Let's finish with that.
I think it has to be Alex Call in the outfield. We know that he can handle himself both offensively and defensively, and provide some key hits and that kind of thing, and play adequate defense out there. So I think he has to be the fourth outfielder at this point. Zach Ehrhard, they wouldn't want him to be the fourth outfielder. They want him to get at bats in the minor leagues.
Great point.
Yeah. So I think he's definitely going to go down, and hopefully we'll see him again soon. Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully not in terms of injury, but I think he's definitely on the fast track. So. And then Sawinski, we haven't really even seen him. Is he
a powerful dude? Powerful dude. He can play center field.
Yeah, he did have I noticed he had a really good.
Well, he just got DFA and cleared waivers, so that's why we haven't seen him.
Okay. Yeah, I did. He had a really good, a pretty decent 2023 with the Pirates, I saw. Yeah. So maybe somewhere down the line, but he's starting so late that he hasn't really had a chance to really show anything or make an impression. So
that's a good point. So with all these guys gone with the World Baseball Classic, can you evaluate these at bats? Because you don't even know who the pitchers are right now. You don't know if they're the best pitchers. These guys aren't going to get to see the best competition. So how can you evaluate these at bats moving forward?
Well, I think you just have to kind of take it into account that whether they're going against a quality major league pitcher or if it's a guy that's going to be in single A this year. Just take it on a at bat by at bat basis, I would say. Yeah. But yeah, getting back to the second base, I think Espinal has the upper hand there.
So I'm not out of my mind there. Then okay, that's good.
No, not at all. And it's going to be interesting to see how Kim does in the WBC. Freeland most likely is going to spend another year in the minor leagues, or he'll be up and down probably during the year. But most likely I would say it'd probably be Espinal and Kim on the roster at this point.
All right, man, this has been a whole lot of fun. So we like to talk about all the different battles. We like to talk about our babies that have impressed us. We like to get into the chat. We don't win the games against Christopher Sanchez in the NLDS without Alex Call. Call base finished with the highest OPS against Sanchez in the NLDS due to his walks. That's a good point from Noah Ortega there. And then Carlos Garcia says Call is good against lefties and he takes walks. There's another niche. So a lot of times, Austin says this all the time, he looks for the one thing like the Dodgers actually need that they don't have. And that one, instead of just saying they're the best player, we need the guy who actually does the one thing that we can't do very well right now that can kind of fit a need. So I think Alex Call definitely does fit a need there. So, hey, final thoughts before we get out of here, Mark.
Yeah, well, I want to give a shout out to my niece Trish, who's going to spring training with me, who's a huge
nice.
huge Dodger fan. So I think I influenced her in that way. So
Nice.
to be a Dodger fan. So
Appreciate it, brother. Hey, we will see you next Thursday, and then hopefully we'll talk to you while you're in spring training over the weekend.
yeah, sounds good. All right, Casey, great talking with you as always, and thanks to all the fans who are watching. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Mark. See ya.
All right, Casey, have a good day.